All right, so we want to talk about the 12 manner of fruits, the celestial fruits, or the celestial tree, the tree of life, right? And we want to kind of get into the Gregorian calendar as well, because there's a war with calendar, right? The heavenly timing and the natural timing. Well, the Gregorian time, the normal time that this society uses, right? It's really a battle because the Jesuit astronomers, they know the heavenly timing, but they can't but fulfill prophecy. Daniel 7 verse 25 says they would think to change times and laws. Why? What is the spiritual thing behind it, behind their reason for changing times? Why was it so necessary for them to change time? Because the heavenly calendar gives an alignment with us and the Most High. So when you deal with even the holy days or the hours of prayers and so forth, it has to do with the calendar. It has to do with the heavens. So every time that we go by a different calendar, it takes out of what? It takes us out of being in sync with the Most High. It takes us out of the when we are supposed to rest. When the Most High rests, we are supposed to rest. When the Most High does this, we're supposed to do the same thing, right? It takes us out of alignment, and this is why so many sicknesses and these things can enter us, can have power over us, because we are in a state of darkness. But this darkness is internal. It's a mental state type of thing, right? I don't have my thing to read any scriptures, but I'll be quoting. Hold on. Coming to grace. Do you have access? I would like the scriptures to be read though. Empress, do you have?
Yes.
All right, can you go to Revelation 22 for me, please? And we'll read verses 1 and 2. I'm going to try to read it from this. This is a weird version, but I'm going to see what I can make from it. It's Revelation chapter 22, verses 1 and 2. It says, "And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the middle of its street and on either side, was the tree of life, which bore 12 manner of fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations." This is what I want. So most people, when they hear about the healing of the nation, the only thing can come to their mind is a certain plant. But let's read it one more time to see what it says. It says, "In the middle of its street and on either side of the river was the tree of life, which bore 12 manner of fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month." Which earthly plant do we know that bears fruit every month? Meaning 12 months for the year. Which tree can we think of that does that?
That bears.
That bears fruit every month.
I have no idea.
Because there are no trees that bear fruit every month. Everything goes through seasons. So there's no earthly trees. So this tree of life is talking about the heavens. This is going into what? The constellations. Because what happens every new moon? Every new moon, the constellations change. How many months are in a year? According to 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 7. Okay, I'm just going to quote. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 4. Let me just read it quickly. And it's also in 1 Chronicles chapter 27. So if you have your Bible, you can go there and see what we're coming from, but I'm just gonna go with the one that is in the book of First Kings chapter 4 and verse 7. It says, verse 7, it says, and Solomon had 12 governors over all Israel who provided food for the king and his household. Each one made provision for 1 month of the year. This version of the Bible is kind of hard to read. Yes, First Kings chapter 4, but it's saying each man made their provision right throughout the course of the year, which is 12 months, right? And also in the book of First Chronicles chapter 27. So there are 12 moons in the cycle of the year. Remember now, the year comes from the sun. So when it starts at 0 degrees, it goes all the way around and come back to the same point, right? So it mentions about what? On either side of the river. So what's happening now? And when it comes to the northern hemisphere, there are 6 moons and constellations that the sun has to traverse, the sun has to go through. And this is where you get your seasons from. Seasons as in yeartide, meaning spring and summer. So it starts 0 degrees, then it starts going north of the east. It starts 0 degrees east, 0 degree east, and it starts traveling north of the east for 6 moons. So this is why the day gets longer in the summertime, right? So that's the 6th moon. Then it goes back to what? The polarity, where everything is kind of equal, dark and light, right? Everything is kind of balanced back in the earth. So then it's going to go back through another 6 moons over in the southern hemisphere, and they're going to go through their different seasons as well. They're going to have their spring and their summer, while we're having the opposite. It's a polar opposite. That's how creation is balanced, right? Opposites, life and death, good and evil, dark and light. That's the nature of consciousness, right? So that's how the sun works. It goes through that. So each moon, the constellations change, and this is where you see different manifestations. So remember it says in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14, it says, let them be for lights upon the earth. So the lights in the heaven, their purpose was to serve what? The earth. So it's going to impact things in the earth, whether we believe it or not. Right? It's going to impact things in the earth. So it's going to give you seasons. It's going to do things to your crops. It's going to deal with the mating season for animals. And, it also affects humans. Right? So the lights were for those purposes. So when you go back to ancient Egypt, right, the cultures, what you'll see is the different gods that they were worshiping in Egypt would go back to what? The different patterns of the constellations. This is why in the scriptures it always tells you to do what? To not do what? To not make patterns after anything you see in the heavens. The scorpion, it shapes like the letter J with the thing coming around there. That these are the patterns that change every month. So at a certain point, each of them gonna have a certain dominance, and it's gonna bring forth things in the earth. So I think this is in Deuteronomy 16. Let me show you something if I can find it. I think Deuteronomy chapter 16 is a particular thing I want to show you guys. Deuteronomy 16. I think. All right. Let me see which verse I'm looking for. I think it's verse 1. It says, verse 1, it says, observe the month of Abib. The month of Abib. Abib, which is in Paleo Hebrew, Abayab. That's the Hebrew word for spring, right? It says, observe the month of spring. In our culture, we do not speak like that. The Hebrews is going to say the first month, the second month, we don't give it certain things like this. This is not our Hebrew scriptures. In the month of Abib. So when you go back to the ancient Egypt, when you say in the month of Abib, what is it that you're really saying? What Egyptian god is it really referring to? Osiris. That's the god over vegetation. They worship the patterns of these constellations, right? So when you deal with our culture now, we would just say Yes, 16 verse 1. Observe the month of Abib. Abib is the Hebrew word for spring, right? But when you look into it, how can you tell what month is the month of Abib, right? You cannot go. This is why people are confused about whether March or April. Is March the spring? Is April the spring? When is the start? They're confused. They do not know. So they'll read it. Oh, observe the month of Abib. What is the month of Abib? They cannot tell you. Right? So the realities of the heavens is what tell you when the spring starts. So again, the sun has to cross what you call the equinox or the equator, whatever it is, right? It spends 3 days going through it. So then the new moon that comes after that, that's when the first moon of the year starts. The first month of the year starts. That's gonna start getting to your what? That's when you start dealing with your seeds. So you're gonna you're gonna see what they call the pink moon. So when the sun crosses the equator, after that first new moon, you're gonna see certain of your trees gonna have that pink flowers on the top that they call the pink moon. So that's the first month of the year. And 14 days after that would be the Passover. Most of the people are confused about when to keep the Passover because they do not understand the celestial calendar. They have no understanding of the celestial calendar. That's why you go on YouTube, everybody has Passover at a different time. The 14th day of the first moon will always be the 14th day of the first moon. It's not like our birthdays. Our birthdays change every year. People don't understand that the Gregorian calendar is not consistent, but they think it is the sun and the moon that is inconsistent. That's how backwards things are with this society. So, like I said, when the sun crosses the equator, the first new moon that comes after that, that's going to be when the starting of the spring is. And this is what they used to refer to back then as the month of Osiris. So the constellations deal with these things.
Okay, so when
Hold on, let me turn off the microphone.
right, so when people observe the different months of the year that they were born in based on their sign, it comes from back when in the Bible it was said that we weren't to try and like make descriptions of the constellations, then like the bull and the goat and the whatever. That's why we have this now, the zodiac.
The zodiac, so all they do is they just modernize the name. So the scripture would say, do not have the names of the other gods in your mouth and so forth. So they modernize the name. So for example, now you'll talk about Taurus, right? But Taurus, what is the difference between Taurus and the bull that they would refer to back in? You remember when Aaron was making that bull god, the molten calf? What is the difference between that molten calf and what you call Taurus today? It's the same thing. It's the god over the cattle. So they just modernize the name, and yes, that is how it is. But the problem now with the Gregorian calendar is the Gregorian calendar takes you out of alignment with these constellations. For example, okay, the first moon of this year would be the 12th of April, 2 weeks ago, right? Now, when you go to next year, that moon is going to be on the 1st of April. So even though people are going on the zodiac thing and reading and so forth, they're not realizing that even if the constellations are not in alignment with their birthday, they don't realize it. So sometimes their birthday is going to be falling in the 12th moon, sometimes it's going to be falling in the first moon, and they don't understand it. For example, what about a person who is born on the 22nd of March? Right? Remember, the sun crosses the equator at the last day is the 21st of March. So the new moon next year is going to fall on the 1st of April, right? No, 2027, that moon is going to fall on the 22nd day of March. So which moon is that person really under? They don't know, because Gregorian calendar does not tell you these things. They just go by dates. Oh, from the 21st of March to the 19th of April, I am what's it called? Aries. They do not know what they speak of. So even when the constellations are, their bodies are going contrary to the thing that they believe, they still cannot find out what is really going on. Why everything is the opposite. I believe this, but I'm doing this over here. They cannot understand it. So the thing what the Gregorian calendar does is just give people a certain concept to follow, but it takes away the reality from it. So no, we should not be bowing down to these things or, giving certain reference to these things. But again, they changed the names and it's modernized, and now it's okay for us to worship these things. So we don't say Osiris anymore. We don't use the word Osiris anymore, the god over vegetation, but we still modernize these terms. There's no difference for real. Right. Yeah? You have any other questions?
Because you answered it. Okay, so in other words, now then, based off what you're saying, then it is easy for us all to be tricked about, the status of the time, because of the fact that not only is it that they have already changed it for us religiously how we observe things like the Sabbath, but because of the fact that we're in this system where we have to be working within their norms and by their calendar, we're kind of stuck. It's kind of hard to get out of the system unless you get out of the system.
Subject to it. So your entire spiritual element is going to be off. Because remember, in order for you to be in alignment with your God, you have to go to him on the time he appoints for you. So guess what? Say for example, he says, this day I want you to come before me to worship me. No work, no whatever, right? But then your day off is say tomorrow. You're going to align your day off with his day, and that's where the problem is. So everybody who has a different day off, they're going to think that the holy day is the day that I'm off from my job. So it's not about the time that the Most High said, come to me. You see what I'm saying? So it's backwards. So now we are creating our God, and we are creating the service of worship to our God. So everything is backwards. So if today is my day off, if tomorrow is your day off, tomorrow is the other person's day off, everybody's going to have their own holy day. Nobody's dealing with, okay, the Most High said to come to me this day, this hour. For example, the hours of prayer, right? When you look at the clock system, 6 hours, there's always 6 hours difference. So you're going to be 6 hours out of alignment, right? So remember, when you wake up in the morning, usually the first hour of the day is going to be 6 o'clock on your clock, right? But how can it be the first hour? The numbers on the clock represents hour. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are hours, right? So how can you wake up the first hour of the day and it's already 6? The clock is saying 6 hours. So you see, it throws you off the alignment, right? Now, when it comes to prayer, remember, these are hours where the Most High opens the portal of heaven to receive prayers, because there are certain times you can pray and your prayers get a little bit hold back, because remember, it has to go through darkness. Light is beyond darkness, right? So your prayers the prayers have to go through these things. But then you have certain hours that the portals of the heavens are opened. So it's free access. But then you are out of alignment because you're waiting on 12 o'clock on your watch, not realizing that solar noon is based upon what? Do you know what in the heavens tell you when it is solar noon? Because solar noon is not 12 o'clock on your watch. Solar noon is only the heavens can tell you that. You know where it comes from? Solar noon? What is solar noon? How do we identify solar noon? Because remember, the 12th hour of the day, the 6th hour of the day is very, very important for praying, or worshiping, or doing your service to the Most High. So look at people who claim that they are worshiping today. When do they do their prayers? They don't go outside and say, okay, the portal is open, let me go and connect. They don't do that. Solar noon is when the sun is at the highest point in the sky. So that is the portal between what? Morning and evening. Because remember, it says the evening, the evening and the morning were the first day. When the sun is highest. Right. When the sun is highest. Right. So remember, it says the evening and the morning were the first day. Remember, evening is not night. And evening is not something apart from what they call afternoon. Evening and the morning were the first day. What is the practicality of an evening and the morning? When the sun rises in the eastern, above the eastern horizon, right? It rises and it travels and travels. It gets to the highest point. Then it starts doing what? Going down over the western horizon. So from the eastern horizon coming all over, that's the 12 hours of the day. Now at the highest point of the sky, what do you call it? The zenith, whatever it's called. That portal right there is going to be solar midday. So you know that in winter, when the sun is more on the south coast, it's going to be travel lower. So it's not going to be 12 o'clock in winter. It's not going to be 12 o'clock in spring and 12 o'clock in summer when the days are longer. So this is why you cannot go by 12 o'clock to say, okay, I'm going to do a 12 o'clock prayer. It does not give you the accuracy of the portal opening for prayers. So everything is backward because we no longer rely on the actual source of light. Remember, God is light. Knowledge is light. The spirit inside of us, what is it called? Da'ath. What is Da'ath? Knowing, knowledge. That's the true spirit that is inside of us. It's a spirit of knowingness. It is that which knows. When we say I am that I am, or when we say I am, it means that it knows. It is what knows. But ignorance is from the flesh. So the darkness of the mind and so forth, the perceptions of the mind, the perception of reality, the perception through the five senses. This is where ignorance comes from, because the mind has to do what? The mind has to make sense of what it collects, the data that it collects. But the spirit that is beyond, that is where knowing is. So we refer to that spirit as Da'ath, our knowledge. Yeah, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Two things. You mentioned about the hours of prayer or the prayer times, and I wanted to know about what those times are. And two, based on what you're now saying, then the first hour of the day would mean it's the first hour after the sun has started to raise, right?
Or would be okay. You when you look at the heavens, right? Remember, the day starts when the night ends. So the night is ending when you see the stars are disappearing. So at the deep disappearance of the star, this is what you go into, like twilight. It's kind of like both lights. So it's like half dark, half light, right? So that's the twilight period. So about 15 minutes after that, now it starts to get so clear. So from that point to sunrise is where you start to actually see the sun over the eastern horizon. So in that period right there, that's your first hour. Do you understand that? Right. In other words, we should start measuring the day based on when the sun rises. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Say, before the Greenwich London, before that became the universal 0 degrees, everybody would have their own 0 degrees in their own land. It was since probably England became superpowers, they had this committee, they came together and created the international dateline, and they had to find a place. And because London was the superpowers at the time, that's why they chose Greenwich for the 0 degrees. And like I said, a lot of countries were not did not agree to it. I think France and a few other countries agreed later, but everybody would have their own 0 degrees. This is why when you go to places like Russia, you can have Russia have so many time zones in that one country. You can, because the time Russia is so big, when the sun hits Moscow here, it might not be the same point when it hits St. Petersburg, or another point where it hits this point. So we did not have that thing where everybody under this 0 degrees. No. 0 degrees is when the sun hits your land, and that's when you start counting the first hour. Not measuring the time from London. That's just a committee of men doing that. This impacted everything too, because I remember the confusion how computers reflect time. 2000. Shalom, Yanni Clinton. Right, it affects everything, but most of all, it affects our spirituality. So where we should be in spiritual alignment. For example, in winter, right? The sun is right. So what usually happens with our bodies, we should be in a more kind of reclined state, kind of more relaxed, right? But based on technology right now, we are opposing the forces of nature. So this is why it's so easy for us to sick. Because even when the heavens declaring for us to rest, we are doing what? Fighting against the heavens. So we open portals for sickness, right? Always in fight or flight. We are never in alignment. This is why it's so easy for us to be sick. Nighttime, for example, back in the ancient cultures, what would you be doing at nighttime? You'd sleep. You try to do everything in the period of the daylight. So when the night comes, you sleep. No, there's electricity. Okay, let's deal with the animals. I used to raise chickens, right? I keep lights in the coop. For what purpose? So the more they stay up, the more the light will trick their body that it's day. So the more they're eating is the bigger they're getting, right? So it's the same thing for us as humans, because we should be sleeping at night, but because of artificial lights, it alters our states of mind regarding day and night. This is why you see people can be talking so with the madness, midnight sun. That's how delusional we become. Technology does that. But if you should go back in the ancient culture, when these people only know that region that they were living in before they were traveling, everybody would understand that, oh, it's going to be long days, 6 months of, and affects how our brains produce milk. It has to affect it, because people don't understand the pineal gland, The pineal gland is the part that is in the middle, where it alters between dark and light. So, for example, when you get up certain hours of the night and you go back on the phone, some people will say, oh, I can't sleep, so I go on the phone. No, you going on the phone is going to alter that thing, because you're doing what? Giving it light when it should be in the state of darkness. So it's taking us out of alignment. That's what artificial lights do. But if we didn't have it, guess what? We would know that, okay, it's now night. The body is going to go into that. What's the word I want? What's the word that they use it in computer, where the computer hibernation. You understand? The body would naturally be responding to the moon at nights, and during the day it responds to the sun. So we were governed by the heavens. So now we are forced to do what? Live contrary to our own nature. And we're wondering why we're being sick so often. Right? Any question?
The minute you mentioned pineal, I remember there's a scripture that mentioned a place with a similar spelling. I think it's
Don't exit the app. Your microphone is mute.
Oh, I was saying, I remember seeing that scripture some time ago about the pineal, a place called pineal or pineal, and I was wondering if it has anything to do with the pineal gland as well, because even though it was talking about a physical place, I was always curious about that.
Temple, remember, where is the real temple? The temple is the region from your ear to your ear. This is where you get the word Hebrew from. You understand? Abari is the Hebrew word, because when you go to 1 Corinthians, it talks about the head of man. So this is the natural body, but the spiritual head of man is that consciousness, right? Which we call Christ. That's the head. So everyone understood back in the ancient culture that meditation is what takes you to the place. When it says in Genesis 28, when it says let me read it, Genesis chapter 28, verse 10, right? When he talks about Jacob having his encounter, right? It says, now Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. So he came to a certain place. That certain place has a dual meaning. It talks about Jacob having version 30. It has dual meaning, right? So the physical place, he was at a physical place, but also he was at a spiritual place in meditation. Look, it says, verse 10, verse 11. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night, because the sun had set, and he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head. Now think about it, right? A stone is something solid, is something hard. You put it at your head. It's what? It's going into a pillar. You use a pillar to hold up a building. So the stone that he placed at his head was not just the physical stone, but what? He accepted something spiritually. May the clouds covering the sun alter you naturally. Yes, definitely. May the clouds covering the sun alter you. Remember, we are being altered naturally because every hour there's a change of with the constellations. So even though it's day now, you cannot physically see the constellations, but guess what? There are activities. There are still activities going on. And this is why I said we have to understand the natural body, because earth, air, water, and fire is still operating in the lower parts of our nature. So this minute you're like this, the next minute, remember, cloud is what? It's dealing with water, it's dealing with the liquid. So if it's not fiery, you might in a certain state, but then cloud comes, that's water, so that water opposes fire. So you can find a little change in your mood, a little swinging in your mood, and you don't understand it. You're wondering, okay, but you're all good. What happened? You see what I'm saying? So yes, there's always a little changes going on every hour. It's a moving earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire, and it carries on throughout the moon, and it carries on throughout the year. This is why I said to you, if you're born, like, say, okay, I'm January 3rd, right? I would be under what they call Capricorn, but that would be my annual sign. But what about the other 11 months of the year? What am I? You see what I'm saying? So it's altering whether we believe it or not, whether we're in agreement or not. It is still altering, and the elements control what? Sensations in the body. This is why our egos are triggered by what? Sensations. You feel a certain sensation in your body. Oh, I think I'm in love. Oh, you feel a certain fiery sensation. Oh, you want to fight. You're angry. You see what it controls our mood, whether we believe it or not. This is why, matter of fact, this is why when you go to read anything about this, what you call horoscope, zodiac, you'll notice at least 75% of what you read about this, that you regarding it, is accurate. At least 75% is accurate. Have you ever read it, Empress or Coming to Grace? Have you ever read anything regarding the
zodiac? I needed you to repeat.
Your birthday is now what month we're in? We're in April. Have you ever read up about Taurus, and you see that at least 75% of what you read is accurate about your behaviors? Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever read it?
Yes. And that's why I was saying to you that I'm guilty of it in a sense, because on the one hand, I believe that what you believe you bring about. So if I believe that if there's a general consensus, for example, that as a Taurus I am lazy, for argument's sake, and I take on that belief that I am lazy, then I'm going to manifest that. And just like when I read the horoscopes, what I realize is, and this was back in the day when I used to really read horoscope, what I realize is I might read it and then all of a sudden everything that it says will happen, or at least most of what it says will happen. But if I do not read my horoscope, like in the morning, and then go through the whole entire day and then I read it again, at the end of the day it doesn't normally match up. So I think it has a lot to do with the belief in the entity, or in the whatever it is that governs the horoscope. That's one. And two, looking back at where I found the scripture, it was Genesis 32 verse 30, and when he said that he called the place Peniel because he saw God face to face. And then knowing that the pineal gland is not susceptible, but it sensitive to light. It is sensitive to light. That just it brought so much to my mind about it, that now that scripture makes a lot more sense.
People use that to relate to that point, and when they speak of their third eye being open, they refer to that point as well. But like I said, the pineal gland is what alters between light and dark, so yes. Let me just tend to what Coming to Grace is saying here. It says, So rainy days will completely change everything. Yes, because remember, you're changing, it's a state of the element has been changed. So guess what? If no water comes into the picture, whatever mood you were in before is going to be altered. So what if you were in this what if the fire was predominant at that moment and now the rain comes? It's going to be total opposite. This is like where you get your bipolar thing from, because it's a change from one thing to the polar opposite. This is why I said if the water comes, if the rain comes, right, and you go into a relaxed state of mind, it means that what? It's opposing the fire element. So this is why you go into a relaxed state. But if the water comes and you feel more dull, it means that there excess water. So you're already in the water element was already predominant, and then with the excess water, rain, the rivers overflowing, whatever it is, right? It's excess water. So you're gonna know that, okay, that's what's happening. This is why I said you don't need to read these things to know what element is predominant. Your behaviors, your moods, everything will tell you which one is predominant in what situation, right? And this is why I said, this is why the Most High gave us laws to do what? To govern certain things. For example, you have the 4 elements, right? Earth, air, water, and fire. They're constantly changing, but something has to remain static. Where is the 5th element? The 5th element is predominant, but it's not going to stop. Whatever the fire element is going to work in you, it's not going to stop it. It is the 5th element. It is the consciousness of your spirit that has to know certain things and do what you're supposed to do, and don't do what you're not supposed to do. It is that 5th element that has to have dominion over all 4 states of matter. So that's exactly how it works. So this is why we have laws, because when you go into the elements, notice the cycle of it. What is the first element? Fire, then earth, then air, then water. So the heaven is a polar opposite to earth, because we cannot start with fire. We have to start with what element? What element would you have to start in earth? You have to start with water. This is why in our last conversation, what did I say? You start your day with your water element. You're going into prayer, your meditation, you drink your glass of water, you read your scriptures, your affirmations. That's how you start your day. And then you go through these different elements. But if you go from fire, you're always going to end up making mistakes, because the way it governs the heavens is not the same way it governs over the earth. It's a polar opposite. Just like I said, we are in the northern hemisphere. It's the polar opposite to people who are in the south. So we are having what season now? Spring. We're having spring. They're probably having autumn in south. It's the polar opposite. So if we do not understand the realities of the elements, we're always going to be doing what? Tendencies, habits, characters, bad patterns, bad behavioral patterns. We're going to be repeating the same thing because we're subject to what? Fire, earth, air, water. Fire, earth, air, water. These things govern us and we don't know. We are not conscious of it. This is why I said the head of man is what? Is that consciousness that has to have dominion so we can be subject to the laws of nature. So the law says, do not do this. Even though the fire is burning and you want to go and do this, the dominancy of the 5th element will prevent you from doing it. So sensations do not drive you to act. Sensations is what prompt us into wrong behavior. Let me check in with these comments. Oh yes, but rising sun and moon signs are sometime different depending on date and time you're born. Yes, because you'd have to know your real birth according to the constellations. This is what I was saying earlier. Say a person who is born on the 22nd of March, right? Sometimes the moon that they're reverencing their birthday is not going to be what they reverence their birthday and with the Gregorian calendar is not going to be the same as what the heavens declare. So sometimes the 22nd of March will be what? The 12th moon of the year. Sometimes it can be the first. So this is why most people, they live by concepts. As Empress said earlier, you read certain things and you start to give into that belief. Because you're not tying it with the realities of the heavens. You're tying it with concepts. I looked at Egyptian astrology yesterday as well. They have gods governing theirs. Okay, why gods governing theirs? This is the same thing I talk about with in the video with the plagues of Egypt. That's what the plagues of Egypt were about. When it says in Exodus chapter 10, let me read that just to get one. Exodus chapter 10 verse 12, it says, Then Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch out your hands over the land of Egypt, for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Egypt and eat every herb of the land. That's going into what? Osiris. Who is the god of vegetation? Osiris. Right? So this is what the plagues were about. They didn't understand that the Most High was showing you that, hey, showing us, the Israelite, that, hey, do not adapt to these gods of these nations. I told you, don't do after them. Do not follow their customs, anything. So the Most High was proving to his people and them that, hey, that you worship as God, they are no gods. Not saying these constellations don't have power. They're not authorities and principalities and so forth. But he was proving a point. This is why the plague, this is the reason for these plagues. Hathor, this is why he destroyed the cattle, because that's what they had. They had this god over cattle. Right? Let me see what next. I'm catching up with the comment. I'm a sit sign. I'm a sign. I'm naturally bipolar. I don't think I need to say anything on that subject. You already know that. That's the scripture I was referring to for the benefit of those listening in Genesis 32:30. Spirit is the fifth element. Yes, this because that is what predominant. I haven't watched the Avatar, so but you said like the Avatar, so you'll understand it. But yes, the spirit is the fifth element. So the four elements responsible for the lower nature, the mind, the body, the intellect, right? The sensations, the ego, all of these are the lower nature. But the spirit is what is static. It is fixed. It does not move at every wind. As the scripture would say, at every wind of doctrine. It does not move by desire. It does not move by fear. It does not move by doubt. It does not move by confusion. It does not move by these things are lower nature. The spirit is superior to all these. So these different events are going to come up in our life. These experiences are going to come. These events are going to happen to us. But the spirit will remain the same, to know that, okay, I'm going through a storm right now. I am who I am. I am that I am. I am not changing. I'm not going to let this event, this thing injure me so bad that I'm changing against you or changing against these people. I'm not going to become the very thing that I was fighting against. So like a lot of people, when they get betrayed in relationships or families or so forth, they were so much against it. But then after a period of time, that very wound caused them to transform into the very thing that they were against. And you see a lot of that today, especially throughout relationships. You hate what this man or this woman did to you, but no, you're doing it to everybody else. It turns us into hypocrites. You see what I'm saying? Right. Yes. So, coming to grace, you have more you want to say regarding to the Egyptian thing you just talked about? Because the same circuit that they use there is the same ones they are using today. They just call it by different names. There's no difference between Osiris and Taurus or whichever one. This is the same concept. The only thing they did was change the names, change the dating, and so forth. That's all it is, right? Yeah, go ahead.
With what I seen, yesterday, the difference from what theirs is, okay, for example, like when they say Taurus, they specifically picking, okay, the like end of April, beginning to middle of like May. Far as with the Egyptians, for example, like from what I looked at with mine, like up in my sign range, it'll be the dog-like figure. I believe it's Abyss or something like that, whatever it is. But theirs is, okay, so it'll be like end of May, beginning of June, but then it also jumps to like November, October, somewhere around that time. So it's like it's two different parts. Like they have like fewer, like lesser gods, but it's like in two different parts. Like, so basically that moon sign or whatever it is will be ruling in two different times of the year. That's basically how they're doing it.
I'm not sure much of what you just explained, but what I know is, like I said, everything is a polar opposite, and there are two times of the year that they're like equal. So back in going towards September, October, right? The sun crosses the equator for them, right? So they're gonna go back into what? Their own seed time, just like we are in our seed time now, because the first moon of the year gives us what? Fire. This is why it's so dry. This is where you can burn your land, prepare your land for farming, right? It's going into seed time, right? So this is why I said Kepri. What's the name? Osiris. If you look up Osiris, you will see that Osiris is the god of vegetation. This is the Greek name that they place on it. I don't know what the Egyptians call it in their Egyptian tongue, but Osiris was the Greek word for the god of vegetation. That's the same thing that we have. So in the southern hemisphere, right, when the sun crosses, it's going to be their seed time. And the second moon is going to come with what element? The earth. So whatever you sowed in the first moon, like whatever you sow now, right, the next moon is when it's going to be springing up in the earth. It's going to reach a certain stage, right? And then the third moon comes with what? The air element. Air deals with what? The spirit of understanding and intelligence. So this is where the heavens now is going to start relating to the crops that you planted in the spring season. So this is what? The last moon of the spring season. So it starts to get everything that it wants, right? So it's going to come with the water after that. And then, you know, you're going to go into what? The first moon of your summer. What is summer? Summer is harvest. So if you do not, people have to understand the agricultural cycle. And this is the problem I have with people who are who say they're doing the work of the Most High, because they're doing the word, they're teaching the word, but they are not teaching the realities of the scriptures or of the relationship with the heavens and the earth. Because you cannot take agriculture out of it. All the priests, they had the suburb, they had the farmlands in the other 11 tribes. To do what? To raise cattle. So they had to understand it. So the fourth moon is going to be the first. Matter of fact, let me get that in John chapter 4 and verse 35, because the first month, listen, it says, do ye not say there are still 4 months and then come the harvest? Because what? Everybody understood that once the sun crosses the equator, you start your seed time, then the earth start bringing up your crops, and then the water comes, and then the sun is going to pump all that helium into the fruits. So the fruits are going to be ready in the fourth moon. Everyone understood that? So it's always the same concept, whether you're in the southern hemisphere or in the northern hemisphere. So the moon that we have that we're going through now, that they call it the pink moon. This is the first moon after they cross the equator. It's not going to be the same when it crosses the equator and the south. But it's going to be their seed time. So this is why it says back in Revelation 22, what did we read? It says, on either side of the river. What is the river? You have the northern hemisphere and you have the southern hemisphere. It's polar opposites. But 2 times per year, in the crossing of the sun, crossing of the equator, that's the 2 times where these energies are balanced. For us, that's August. What is August? What is that? What are you saying about August, Empress? I'm gonna unmute. Oh, the 4th month. April, May, June, July. How do you get August in that? Unmute and speak.
Well, if April is the first month, I'm just doing the mathematics in my brain. So April to May, that's 1 month. Just doing it like that. May to June, then June to July, then July to August. So those are 4 months. You had mentioned something about in the 4th month, and if the first month of the year is for this year was the 12th of April. So April is the first month of the year. So the 29 days or the 30 days from the 12th to whenever is the first month, and second month would be, and so forth. So around August, our time.
In July to August, wherever period there, maybe July 10, somewhere there. I'm not sure, but from July to August. I cannot go on this system now to pull it up, but yes, it's by the moon. This is why we go by the moon, because go by July, August, September, and so forth, it becomes confusing. So we go by the moon. So whatever, that's why we say the 4th moon after it crosses. So once it crosses the 4th moon It's not going to always fall on that time of the Gregorian calendar. Because remember, the Gregorian calendar keeps floating. It's not anchored to anything. This is why I said in 2027, our first moon is going to be on the 22nd of March. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be falling. And when you think about it, think about your birthday. What day did your birthday fall on this year? Right? Okay, if the Gregorian calendar is consistent, then why does not your birthday fall on the same day next year? You see what I'm saying? It's very inconsistent, but people believe in it. So it doesn't matter what reality says, they believe in it. And that's the power of belief. You can create any religion out of belief. Once you take reality or God out of the equation, you can create any religion that you want. The school system is a religion. University is a religion. Politics is the biggest religion. All of these things, once there's no reality in it, you can always create a religion. You can even create a religion out of relationships. That's how bad it is. Right? Or the way I go on with General. Yeah, man, respect, Biggs. Me there. You don't know where you're going now. We still have to do it thing. You see it? Yeah, man, respect, man. Yes, Empress. So back to this cycle now. As I said, how it works now. The sun goes around for 3 moons, right? That's the spring season. Then in the 4th, it goes higher. So what it's doing now, it's giving all the energy, all the helium, everything into the earth. So all the fruits now are going to be ready. And this is when you have your harvest. So in the harvest time, what do people do? You go and you get not only fruits. It's not only fruits that you get, but you get also what? You get to share seeds. Because remember, no poor was to be among the people. So who doesn't have certain thing, they'll get the seed so they can go home and they can now plant such and such crop. That's what harvest was about. Now in the 5th moon, there was no holy days for us. So it's a time where you get to spend time with yourself, spend time with the scriptures and whatever spirituality, right? Then now in the 6th moon, this is what you're talking about now, coming to grace. In the 6th moon, guess what? This is when you're going to have the bigger harvest. So let's go to Leviticus 23, right? And we're going to get some understanding of, because like I said, the Most High gave us his calendar for a certain purpose. And because most of us do not deal with agriculture, we just go to the markets and buy stuff, we cannot see how important understanding the heavens are. Understanding the heavens is for us, right? It says, verse 34. It says, speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles. Because guess what? After you get that big harvest in the 6th moon, that's what you're gonna save your seeds for. You're gonna save it also for the next what? Spring. So the seeds that you get from this harvesting, this is the bigger harvest. This is bigger than what you get in the 4th moon. So you save back all your seeds, everything that you're going to need for the next planting season. So this is why I said to teach the word of the Most High, it's important that you get into the agricultural aspect of things, which most of people don't get into. This is why I said they're going to create a lot of religions out of the Bible. Many shall come in my name. They're going to come with the Bible. But they're not going to teach it based on the realities of the scripture. They're going to teach it based on the concepts of what they're familiar with. So this is why many false Christs will arise. Some of them are going to be intentional, but some of them are just going to be out of the zeal of their own heart. They don't know that they're doing it. But then they're going to become a vessel for the kingdom of darkness to use. They're just going to take the zeal that's in them and work. This is why it's so important for us to constantly doing what? Meditation. We have to get into spiritual alignment to see what we're doing and what is the driving force behind our actions. What is it that is prompting us? What is it that tells us that we're ready to do this bidding, to do this thing? Is it just a zeal in us or what it is? So it's important to understand the heavens. So yes, in the 7th moon, that's what you do. You have your big feast. And then the sun is going to cross over into the southern hemisphere. We're going to go into our autumn, what they call autumn, the fall season. So this is why I said it's a polar opposite. Just like I said with day and night, is the same thing. The morning and the evening. The morning is the sun coming over the eastern horizon until it reaches the highest point in the sky. That's morning. Evening is the sun from the zenith coming to the western horizon. That's morning and evening. So you can attest, you can experience what morning and evening is. So everything about the Most High is practical. It doesn't matter how spiritual you think you want to be. If there's no tangibility to what you're teaching, you are in a problem. I need to see tangibility. I'm very carnal. I need to see tangibility. Don't tell me about spiritual. And it's you cannot see it, you cannot hear it, you cannot touch it, you cannot feel it. Let's see what the scripture says about that, about our forefathers from the beginning. I'm going to go to the book of 1 John chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled, concerning the word of life. So how is it that you're going to tell me, oh, it's spiritual, you cannot see it, you cannot hear it, you cannot touch it, you cannot taste it, you cannot experience it? No, you're gonna be coming with a religion. What's this? You're gonna be coming with a religion. Coming to grace. Not coming to grace. Empress. What happened? You wanna say something, Empress? Since you come back.
No, your life kicked me out.
Okay. So do we have any questions regarding the constellations, the 12 moons of the year, the tree of life, the healing of the nation? Because this is what everybody relied upon. That you have the tree of life and you have the tree of knowledge, good and evil. It is not two, it is not two separate things. The Most High is talking about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge, good and evil is the same thing. What is it? What was it that Adam was dealing with in the garden? The constellations. Because the same moon, for example, the same moon we used to keep our Sabbaths and our feast days and other whatever it is, right? The same sun that we use to know when the portal is open for prayers and so forth. These are the same elements you can use to do what? Two-sided coin, exactly. Coming to grace, two-sided coins. It's one coin with two sides. So good, it's just like wisdom, the spirit of wisdom. Good and evil is two sides of the nature of wisdom. It's the nature of it. Okay, the two-sided coin. What time of the day? I just explained it. The rising of the sun. That's the first hour, right? So 3 hours after that, that would be what? That would be the third hour. Another 3 hours, what? The sun would be in the middle. That's the 6th hour. Another 3 hours, that's like in the Roman time, 3 to 4 p.m. That's another 3 hours. So those are the 4 quarters. Everything is about the 4 quarters. Those would be your hours of prayer. So it is the sun that you have to use during the day. In the night, they would watch the heavens. So this is why you have watchers. And these are the people you also pray. Watchers, you have to know when you are being the watcher of your family. Meaning you're going to be the one that has to pray over your family. You have to pray over your house. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. That burden is for you to carry. A lot of people are carrying that burden and they cannot manage it because they get consumed by the earthly things. Some of you working 2 jobs. Some of you, you're in relationship with wrong people who are not in spiritual alignment with you or what you believe in. So it's draining and it's easier for them to consume you than you to convert them. This is what a lot of people don't understand. So guess what? The duty that you are called for, to be a watcher over your household, your earthly matters are consuming you to the point where you cannot watch over your family. So guess what? Darkness now has access to your household. You see what I'm saying? So it's important for us to know these things so we can get into that alignment. This is the reason why he told us, Genesis 1 verse 14. It is for this purpose. Shalom, lifetime riches. Would you like to come up and share your piece if you have something you want to add? You're welcome to join us, It's an open conversation. what we're just talking about. So yes, it's important. And when you go back into the ritual aspect of it, if you notice, there's a morning ritual and there's an evening ritual. This is all taking place in the daytime. Evening is what they call afternoon, because after when 12 p.m. passes, right? What do you greet? How do you greet people? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Where in the Bible is good afternoon? Is afternoon? Show me one scriptures that refer to afternoon in that context. It doesn't exist. Once midday is past, it's called evening. Nowhere exactly. Once midday is past, once the sun reaches the zenith over your head and is heading towards the west, it's evening. There is evening and there is morning, and that is the first day. So that's the alignment that we need to come back in, so you don't get confused. Oh, when to pray? When should I pray? When is the best time to pray? You pray when the portals are open. That means kingdom of darkness does not have the authority to block your prayers. They cannot block your prayers. The portal is open. That's the time you transcend. That's the time you ascend. These are authorities that we get from the spirits of light. These are authorities. So this is why it says in John here, look, let me read it one more time. It says, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen, with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled concerning the word of life. So when you get into your prayer and your meditation and your fasting all together in one, guess what? You are ascending to a certain realm where you're interacting with creatures of life, these creatures of light. This is why this is why they always say they saw visions of angels. Where are they seeing it? In the natural realm? No, they ascend, and in that state of meditation, they encounter. So guess what? These light creatures are authority that you possess. So this is the problem now. You would have the ability or the authority over certain creatures of darkness. No, they teach you a religion where all you want to do is whatever you do in that religion. But back then, everybody would be a vessel used by these creatures of light. Moses parted the Red Sea. This person did this. This person, they all possess the capabilities. You never see someone coming from heaven and just doing something. You become a vessel that they possess, and you do it. What did he say to Moses? Moses, you are going to deliver my people. What did Moses say? Moses had all these excuses. He said, Moses, you are going to deliver the people. So religion kill this what do you call it? The opposite of doubt. It puts a lot of doubt in us, because it's also doubt ourselves. It's unworthy to behold the powers of God. So a lot of us, we cannot ascend to certain levels of power that we are called for, because we're filled with fear, shame, guilt. All these things are pertaining to the lower nature. We don't see ourselves worthy to have this authority over our spirits. What of midnight prayer? I hear people talking of. What about it? I seriously didn't know this. Wow. Evening comes from even. Yeah, it's the same thing there. Yes, but evening is an experience. This is why when I talk about the scriptures, I say I go to the experience, because you cannot separate experience from your reality. The experience is the reality. Once you start to place narratives on your reality, that's when you create a religion. This is why I said, how can you debate when an evening is? If I say when the sun reaches the zenith over your head to the western horizon, you understand exactly what I mean when I say evening. So once you go outside, you can experience evening. How are you going to debate that? You cannot. There's a reality there. There's something tangible. This says that which we have seen from the beginning, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes. How can you go around that? So if you take reality out of the equation of what you call God, you're going to end up with a religion. You're going to end up with beliefs. You're going to end up with concepts.